Today we're going to be going over two different builds. The first one is going to be an $1,100 build. This is for the US. So let's actually get into it here. Here we have the PC part picker. It's just most convenient to use this, and it's a really good tool if you haven't. Up here in the corner you can select what country. There's multiple. So if it doesn't fit for you, you're going to have to use your local, but it should work. So what I did is I went, and this $1,100 build is designed to be a good, solid, high refresh rate 1080p or 60 FPS 1440p build. So let's start off with the i5 6600K. So it's 3.5 gigahertz base clock. Obviously, since it's a case here, you're going to be overclocking it. Which is why I've included a cooler instead of just using the stock cooler, because if you have a lock chip, stock cooler is probably your best way to go unless you care about looks. So it's a cheap CPU-ish. It's not expensive, but it's not dirt cheap by any means. And then we have the cooler that I mentioned. The Cooler Master settings series is one that I've seen decent reviews on. I know people that have had it and have been running it since release, and they've not had any issues with it. So I'd consider it a pretty solid cooler, and not one that you really got to worry about at all, whether it's going to have reliability issues or whether the performance is good or not. It's a good all-around cooler, and it has a really great price tag on it too. So, motherboards. I'm kind of impartial to ASUS and EVGA, so I went with a decent ASUS. It's the Z170E, which Z170 is the chipset for the 6600K. It's a solid one, has USB 3.1, oh sorry about the mic, USB 3.1 Type-C, and it also has an M.2 slot. These are two features that are going to be important going forward, and it also has what it calls turbo optimized LAN for optimized bandwidth. I'm assuming this means for like connecting over your local area network to like a NAS server or whatever, that it's going to optimize that compared to outbound traffic. So that can be good, and I believe as with most ASUS products, you can turn that kind of stuff off. So let's move on to the next one. Memory. So I went with just generic memory. This was kind of the cheapest that I could find that wasn't just the memory sticks and had an actual heat spreader. So it's just plain silver heat spreader, which kind of goes nice with the motherboard that we chose. That's nice and black and matte. There's not much color to it. And the reason I went with 16 gigabytes is for the price that you can pick it up for now. There's really no reason as to why you would not want to go with it. So, how I mentioned that there was silver, you also have a red option here and a blue option. So that's another good thing about this kit, is that you have multiple options for what color you want if you want to style your build one way or another. Next, on to the SSD. So I didn't include a hard drive in this because I'm expecting you to have a NAS. Because really, at how much it costs to have a NAS nowadays, there's no reason not to, unless you're just a single person living in your house and all you do is live in your room at your computer, and you don't have a media box and you don't have a laptop that you use or anything. But just having a SSD is really the way to go. And the difference in price between a 250 gig and a 120 is so minimal that it's only about 20 bucks difference for double the storage. And as a boot drive, I find that you kind of want to have at least 250 as like the minimum. And the 850 EVO is actually the newer version of the drive I have, and that's a pretty good drive. I have the 840 EVO. It's solid, no issues. I like the Samsung Magician software. It works great. It has the RAM cache speed or whatever. The RAM pretty much creates a RAM disk that accelerates the speed. It has decent performance for a SATA 3 SSD as well. So overall, a really solid SSD. Moving on, so the 970 graphics card. I went with this because it's kind of a neutral color tone, as well as it has really good performance out of the box. For those of you that might not want to overclock your graphics card too hard and push it too much, this is a really good option because, as I said, out of the box it has decent performance. It does have two little stripes of blue on it that I'm not particularly fond of, for the simple fact of it kind of stylizes your build, but it's facing down most of the time, so the realistic chance of you ever seeing it is slim to none in a normal case, which is what we're going to move on to next. So the case I chose is the case I actually have, and the reason I chose it is because I really like this case. The fans that come in it are nice and quiet. I like the case design. It's solid. There's no issues with it. It has lots of great filters. It also has expansion bays that just are good. Removable drive cages, thumb screw side panels. The one bad thing about it is the side panel window actually gets scratched pretty easily. So that is one thing to consider, and I've actually considered doing a mod on mine to upgrade it to a tempered glass, but the weight is what's holding me back from doing that. So now on to the power supply. This is the power supply I already reviewed on my channel. You can check out a link up in the cards, and I'll probably put one down in the description as well to it. It's a really solid power supply. This is very similar. It's the G1, not the G2 like I have, but nonetheless it's still a solid power supply. It's 80 plus gold rated, fully modular, which are two things at this price point that you really should have. There's no excuse for going below gold, and there's really no reason why to go with a semi-modular or a non-modular power supply, especially when the price difference isn't that much at this price point of a build. So let's go back here. Now those are all the parts that we have for this build. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we're going to be doing a $500 build. Once again, this is a US build. This is for your cheap budget gamer that still wants some decent performance. So we went with a quad-core processor here from AMD. It's only 80 bucks, which isn't too much of our $500 budget, but it's still enough to give us decent performance. And this is about the best performance we can get per core that is in this price range, other than going to Intel and giving up the number of cores, which with many games wanting 4 cores now, you actually have to take into consideration that, and that's why the Pentium edition or Pentium Anniversary Edition chip is one that I didn't like from the beginning, and I even now don't recommend it to anyone for anything. And as with all FX chips, it is overclockable. So next on to the cooler. So this is just a cheap cooler. It's going to be better than the stock one significantly, and it's only 17 bucks, so it doesn't do a major hit to our budget. Although this was the last thing that I actually added in. I could have gone with a little more expensive cooler, but the trade-off in the TDP just was not worth it. So if you only have this much budget, you really are trying to save every dollar you can, and if you don't spend the whole budget, that's okay. So I'm over here, motherboard again. I just kind of went with what features I thought it should have, and then which really was just basic functionality. It needs some USB 3, and it needs to have the option for a PS2 port, because as many of you might not like, there are still people out there at this budget range that do have old motherboards, old keyboards and old mice that are still on PS2, and this is 2 PS2 ports. So that's one of the main reasons I went with it. So RAM, literally went with the cheapest 8 gigabytes I could possibly find on PC Part Picker. Now, hard drive. This was about $4.80 more or so than a 1 terabyte drive that I could find. So for that little bit extra, I had it in the budget to go up to a 2 terabyte drive. And if you're storing a decent amount of games and some movies and some pictures and all that, you do take up a terabyte pretty quickly. I have many terabytes of storage in my network system, and I probably have close to half a terabyte of games. Now, on to the main king of the show, the graphics card, XFX. So, it's a decent brand. It is a 380, which is a decent card for the money that it costs you, and definitely is something to look into and consider as a really good choice. It has DisplayPort, it has HDMI, and it has 2 DVIs, which is something that I really think is important considering a lot of the older monitors have either VGA or DVI, and at this budget, again, you're probably going to have some older stuff, so that legacy compatibility is fairly important to consider. And it's not just, oh, what's the best computer I can build for the budget, it's what's the best computer I can build for the budget that also has some legacy support in it for what else anybody might have or I might have to build in. So on to the case. Again, cheapest possible case I can get. It's an extra $10 to go up to a USB 3. So there is about $9 left in the budget. So if you look here, $9 left in the budget, or about $8. So you could go up to USB 3. I wouldn't really recommend it, as it's just not needed. I don't use them on the front of my case that much. I have hubs that I attach to different places that just are much more convenient and easy to use. So there is that. And then finally, the power supply. This was EVGA, so it's a solid company. It's an 80 plus bronze, which is the minimum I think you should go for. And it's cheap at only $40. And even though it's only $40, so that seems really cheap for a 500 watt power supply. But EVGA is a brand that I trust, and they have solid quality power supplies, and I've yet to hear of a major issue with any other power supplies. So I'd consider that a pretty damn good choice for your power supply. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, remember to leave a like down below. Comment and let me know what budget you want me to do for next month, because I think I'm going to make this a monthly thing. And yeah, head over to Twitter, follow me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.